Hello, and thanks for coming along to And We Have an Office Dog, the digital agency podcast where we're talking to the people behind the agency, the service providers, coaches, and mentors to discuss what it's like working with you, the agency leader. With your host, Chris Simmons, the Agency Accelerator, talking to a different agency growth partner in each episode. What they love about working with you, what they wish you knew. All will be revealed. Okay, so let us begin. Over to you, Chris.
Thanks, voiceover guy. I'm really pleased to have Rhys Wynne on the podcast today. I've pulled him all the way from his Twitch streaming and his website development. How are you doing, Rhys?
I'm doing well. How are you doing?
Not too bad, thank you. Not too bad. How is Twitch going these days? Because I don't have the app anymore, but I'm still subscribed to you.
Oh, I appreciate the subscription. It's going okay. I mean, it's kind of like the problem has been like the world. Well, I say a problem. It's not a problem in the slightest. The world has opened up, so there's less people watching. But
fair enough.
You know,
people
the grand scheme of things.
Oh my god.
Yeah, people have lives now, so it's been a little bit quieter, including myself. You know, obviously, so I haven't been available, but it's conversely had like kind of like a nice effect in the all these friendships that I built up with people outside of, you know, just basically playing video games.
That's awesome.
On the internet. Some of us have met up in real life now, so it's happened a couple of times already. So that's been
so
nice.
for those who are listening to this and have never met Rhys, just to set the scene, Rhys is an exceptional WordPress and PHP developer. He's brilliant at what he does, but he's very much. I'm looking at a screen, watching this. You're listening to this. I can see all of the cultural tropes of video game love in the background there. So you really do lean in heavily to that developer archetype.
Oh, exactly. Yeah, it is. I am a developer, and I have literally so much video game memorabilia. Although, you know, I don't really watch many films, but probably because I don't really have time. But there is so much there, from the Commodore 64, the very first game I owned, until like PlayStation and all sorts over there. So yeah.
So for the uninitiated who haven't had the pleasure of meeting you, Rhys, can you give us all a rundown of who you are, what you do, and how did you get to where you are now?
Okay. Hello, everybody. My name is Rhys. I'm a freelancer, and I go by the name of Dwi'n, Dwin, Rhys, Rhys, Welsh way. And I have approaching 15 years in commercial WordPress development, doing WordPress the right way. Previously was an SEO in a small agency, so I got the SEO job as well. I did a small work for a marketing agency for a wee while, moved to another marketing agency, became lead developer, and 4 years ago went freelance and decided to go out on my own. Since then, I have been working with agencies and not just agencies, but other companies, both SEO agencies and development agencies, providing WordPress support, maintenance, trading is a new one now, and just, you know, generally building some of the more unusual things with WordPress, but making sure that it's done in the right way so that it's safe, secure, and SEO friendly. Basically.
Nice. And what was it? You know, there's quite a lot of people who work in agencies now who are kind of thinking about, you know, future state of their careers and stuff. What was it that kind of was the thing that gave you the push to go into freelance and doing it for yourself?
There was almost like a if not now when kind of thing with it's always been something that I wanted to do at some point. There was a point where it was like, right, okay, nothing is really going to change from where I previously was. Let's give it a try. And it was like there was like two paths. It was either buy a flat, or use the money, you know, because I built up a little bit of money, or go freelance. And it was a conversation. I saw a flat in Manchester where I used to live, and I just was like, I wasn't sold on it.
Yeah.
And it was just keep on going through this, and I basically ran my brother, and he said, you've always wanted to go out on your own and, try and have a little bit more freedom to do what you want to do. You've got no mortgage, you've got no kids, you've got no family. Now is the time to do it. You can live for £300 a month, So it was like that was the push that kind of was like, okay, let's go.
And I think the skill set that you have lends itself to that quite a lot, because the higher skilled end of the spectrum in your space either run full web development businesses, as in like an agency of their own, or they are in high demand, and you're often in high demand. Every time I contact you, you're like, "Yep, you got another 6 months to add onto that pipeline there." But the any agency who's got like very clear development needs for WordPress stuff, like you'd be hard pressed to find someone that actually knows it that well, that is an employed member of staff. And I mean that in the nicest way, anyone who's employed and listening to this.
Yeah, and even if they were, it can be just having a second pair of eyes on something, and particularly somebody who is completely disconnected with the agency. Some of the times, like I've come into agencies just to be like, I don't know the politics behind it, so because there's people involved, I'm just going to give you my opinion as a WordPress developer, as a third party, and I can kind of say, right, okay, well, this is the way in which I would do it. Obviously, can be a bit of pushback occasionally, because there are, irons in the fire and everything. But sometimes just having somebody that, even if they turn out to be, really, really good developers, because it's both a positive and a negative, because sometimes it can be a, right, okay, well, we can do this, but we can't because of this kind of thing. So
absolutely.
There are elements of
voiceover guy here. Me again. Looking to accelerate the growth of your agency? Well, check out omg.center/info. Oh, sorry, Chris.
Christ, that guy's rude. Keeps interrupting me. Every recording is an interruption. And speaking of politics, when you go into these agencies, bring your best politician out, just because a lot of agencies are listening to this right now. What do you love the most about working with agencies?
Often, I was thinking about this. So, often there is a lot of satisfaction, and from a job perspective, you almost become a bit of a. Generally, people will only message you when things are going wrong or they need something.
Fair.
It's one of those things. Nobody ever really messages you to see how you do and everything. But so you can be a bit of a firefighter, and you can be a bit of a. Right, okay, well, if he's come in at this point when, things were falling apart and, developers run off, the previous developers run off to Bali and, everything's all over the place. This person's come in and sorted it all out. We appreciate it. Thank you very much. You can, that obviously then, that's usually a start of a lot of relationships for me.
Yeah.
It can kind of build up from that, and also people, people like yourself and everything will always recommend me to other people and everything, and go, this is the person you need to speak to, and referrals are a big thing and everything, and because I trade on my name a lot, I'm not
quite literally.
Well, literally, yeah, it literally is. I am a Rhys.
Yes, you said it. Not me.
But yeah, because my the company is me, I have to trade on my name, and as because of that, it is nice when agencies are beginning to kind of go, oh, such and such from this agency, who is generally like usually the MD and everything's just like, this is the person you need to speak to, and that kind of helps even just the start of the the conversation. I had one a few weeks ago where somebody on a social media platform. I'm not going to say who, and I'm not going to say the social media platform said, "Hi, if Rhys is available, hire him and close the thread." which was just like that's an ego boost. So
Yes.
there is a little bit of that. And you do come in, then your opinion gets respected and everything, and that really helps. And obviously, repeat work, repeat money, all good and everything.
So look at you work with agencies quite a bit, but you also have private clients, both all shapes and sizes and things like that. What's the, considering typical stakeholders and the work that you normally do? Let's not to put it down or anything. Let's say you're building just websites, simple normal websites. Agency wants one, private client wants one.
Yeah.
What are the differences from that perspective? What do you often find are like the key areas there?
The difference is that often the agencies have a little bit more resource. So, for example, they will have a designer.
Yeah,
they will have a designer on sketch, because that's the one thing I don't do. I'm a programmer. I'm not a designer, and they're two different skill sets. So sometimes me just sitting on with a designer, with a content creator, to find out what they want and how they expect things to work. You often I don't want to say there's less risk, but sometimes it can be anything from the agency wants the brand new website to work in WordPress, or it's we've got this client, we're producing this thing that we're going to send off to all the newspapers, and try and build links, and from an SEO, it could be both of those things.
Yeah.
So there is a little bit less work working with an agency, because I don't have to find a designer. I don't have to find content creators, particularly for end clients. I don't have to find. Well, I don't even say I don't have to find, because I'm the one who does it. I don't have to train them.
Yeah,
and there is a little bit. There's a little bit more assumed, rightly or wrongly. There's a little bit more inbuilt, and assumed knowledge, because it's not my first rodeo.
I guess you don't have to tease so much out of the brief as well, because it will go through the agency from the client before it gets to you as well. So I guess quite a lot of questions you typically answer from a private client versus an agency are different types of the same question.
Yeah, things can kind of, they can move quickly, but they could also move slowly. They move quickly in the fact there's a brief literally within a few days, or sometimes even the same day, I've got a quote out for that project. Whereas for a developer, for a private client, it can be a bit slower in terms of, right, okay, can we arrange a call so they can sit down and go over it? Sometimes, some clients will literally just go, how much is it to do this?
Yeah.
From an agency standpoint, it'll just be, how much can it be to do this thing that we're having a problem with?
And you've worked with, over the last good few years now, both in agencies and then with quite a lot of very different agencies as well, depending on, some are paid agencies, some are SEO agencies, etc. So on. What in your experience of working with and basically hearing from them all the time, because you're quite well known in the sector, what was your what in your experience kind of distinguishes the best from the rest, the ones that got that something extra?
Good question.
It is. It is a great question. That's my ego boost for the day done.
I tend to find a little bit of. So, from my perspective, because this is the way I think, because not always the best agencies are the ones that are the best to work with. So, from my perspective, I'm going to answer it from a
subjective term in these senses. To be
so the ones that I find the best to work with are the ones that are the easiest to work with. So, for example, transparency.
Yep.
I know exactly, they will go, look, okay, because not things go wrong, and they go, right, okay, we're still waiting from this from the content team, or still waiting this from the developer team, designer team, or even developer team. I'm still, we're having, people explaining and just going, right, okay, well, this is, transparency is a big one. not having to chase, kind of, and not having to assume.
Yeah.
I think the worst things I've ever had is when an agency will say to me, "Can we have you for 3 months down the line?" And I go, "Great, okay, but I need this, and this by then." And then they go quiet,
Yeah.
and then 3 months down the line, they come and say, "Okay, we're ready to go now." And it's like,
Yeah.
well, no,
Well, I'm
because
not now. Yeah.
yeah, because I'm not, and it can be a bit frustrating that because that obviously has an impact on our relationship going forward, and and
Yeah,
things.
and I think some of the best agencies, yes, the transparency should be there across the board anyway, which
Mm,
you'd hope for. But I think that if you're listening, agency people, which you should be, because this is a world famous podcast. If you are listening and you're working with any external outsourced provider of anything, they are a human being, and therefore they've got calendars of their own, and they've also got their own requirements for the reasons they do their work. So your urgency due to planning is not their problem necessarily. I know for a fact that Rhys is very flexible. However, that flexibility doesn't go a million miles forever, because you've done me a lot of favors in the past when stuff's popped up out of the blue, but at the same time, it's always been very much respected in the sense of, I mean, I feel terrible every single time I do, but also it goes both ways, if that makes sense.
yeah,
And
yeah,
if you're running an agency, you've got to be on top of your operations, you've got to be on top of your
yeah,
planning, and if you're bringing someone in as an outsourced provider of some kind of deliverable, you
yeah,
need to treat them in a sense as an extension of the team in order to manage that properly.
yeah,
And that's part of that transparency piece there.
yeah.
Rhys, you've gone Tron style into one of your fantasy games, and you're wandering around the magical woods and all sorts of things like that, whatever else is happening,
Yeah,
and some elves come up to you. He's given you a magic wand, and you can use that magic wand in the real world, which is pretty cool.
yeah.
What one thing would you use that magic wand on to change in all agencies in one go?
Um, the one thing that I would love, and it's not necessarily just an agency one. It's one for pretty much all clients. If I could get rid of the ability, the need to sell myself, and I'd just be like, because there is obviously a less diplomatic answer is the best agencies are the one who just go, right, okay, this is your day rate, there we go, thank you very
Yeah.
much, we will pay you until the job is done every single day. That's always nice.
Yeah.
With that said, and it's almost because I will speak to a lot of people, agency owners, heads of departments and agencies, individual clients, marketing managers of in-house marketing managers, and you can almost. I'm getting better because this is why I try and get people on the phone quite quickly when I start and speak for 15 minutes, because it's almost like dating. It's like you can
very much so.
you can figure out where you're wasting your time.
Yeah.
And you can figure out the ones that go, okay, well, this person gets it. This person understands why, you're paying somebody, a supplier, to be there for you, as opposed to going on, a website that's named after a short name for a £5 note, and getting a developer from there for, relatively cheap, because I'm the one who's going to be here. I'm the one who's going to, type in my company number, which is on the bottom of a website. You can, don't, but you can find out where I live. Kind of thing.
Don't show up, because there's not very much you can do out in the real world. It's not it's not a spanner and that to actually fix a website.
Yeah, exactly. So that would be my big thing, is just like having the ability that I wouldn't have to sell myself, or with somebody new. Obviously, longer term clients and the clients that I've built up relationships and are generally happy to, and understand it. And it can be a bit tricky just getting over that point, because generally, as I said before, people come up to me when things are going wrong, and they've gone, okay, well, we've got this person who was £50 on a Mars bar. Other chocolates are available. And they've done this, and it's gone wrong. And I'm a little bit dearer. And I try and be fair and everything, but I'm a little bit dearer. And they go, well, why are you so much more expensive? And it's like, well, you're coming to me.
Yeah.
There is a reason why.
There's a love him or hate him an Elon Musk quote that says you're paid in proportion to the problem that you solve, or something to that effect.
Yeah.
And if that's the case, then yeah, totally agree. Rhys, the most technical person I've been able to have on season 3 of the podcast so far. So I'm going to ask you a curveball final question.
Oh God, here we go.
So loads of stuff's changing in the industry at the minute. There's AI, there's lots of other apps that are coming out. There's loads of technical changes, but it's going to have a human impact for sure.
Yes.
Where do you see things in the next few years, and what kind of, like, more generally to the digital industry as a whole? What's the outlook? What do you think?
I think it's. I mean, I think yes, that is a curveball. I wrote a piece about AI and how I think it's going, and I think it's going to affect everybody's jobs. You know, there's no point in saying, but I don't think it's going to affect anybody's jobs in a particular way. I'm going to talk about it from a WordPress standpoint.
Please, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. They put out on the WordPress repository, they said, every single line of code, you can use AI in your plugins to write code.
Yep.
So if you release a plugin and put it on the repository, which is where you download every WordPress plugin, except for the paid ones, you can write AI code, but you need to know where that code comes from.
Oh wow!
Now,
okay,
and that is a big thing, because all of a sudden it's like going, you don't know that, and from a coder's perspective, I know where all my code came from because I wrote it, and I can figure out what it does. If you're getting a junior, not necessarily junior, but if you're getting somebody writing code in AI, putting it on a website, and it goes wrong, they may not have the ability to figure out where it's gone wrong. And I think that's going to be a big thing in it. And I suppose from a more general digital standpoint, I think AI will, hopefully make people's jobs easier, but they need to know what they're doing. It's like everybody, most people in digital are very good at Googling.
That's a question you'd ask in the interview, right? Have you heard of Google?
Yeah. How good are you at Googling? And I think often, and I think AI is going to be the same thing, in that you're going to be people who I'm not saying that everybody's like this, but people who are good at Googling know what to Google to find out, to get the result and what they need.
Yes.
And you're going to get the same when it comes to AI, because they're going to ask people are going to ask AI or something like ChatGPT what they need to to solve a problem, and if they're feeding the garbage and not really explaining itself particularly well, it's the same we're working with suppliers. If you don't explain to lots of suppliers.
I've noticed that with prompts as well, actually, where I've tested it. I've given it arguably the same prompt. If I'd have asked a human the same two things, I'd have had the same two responses if it were the same human, but they aren't the same prompts from that perspective. So if you're good at it, then you'll be able to use it quite well. Rhys, lovely as ever talking to you. Thank you so much for coming on to the podcast.
Not a problem. Happy to have come on.
And in our next episode, we'll be speaking to another agency advisor, mentor, trainer, or partner. And in the meantime, thanks very much for listening.